What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be ranking the items we have in Fortnite's Star Wars Galactic Battle Season. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, and comment down below what you think of these items or which ones you would rank highest or lowest. This video is going to be from the perspective of somebody playing zero build, and I'm not really ranking the heals because I think they're pretty self-explanatory somewhat, and a lot of times you just got to kind of take what you can get, and it is what it is. So let's get right into it. I personally think a lot of the items and weapons this season are incredibly good. They're not all like S tier, but I think you can make a case for using almost anything on this list. For starters, I'm just going to go with the ACP pump and put it S tier. I think one of the biggest gaps between items this season is going to be between the pump and the auto shotgun. I am someone who prefers pump shotguns as is, and I think they're just typically better. But this season, I think the pump is quite solid, and pretty much every single day I've played this season, I feel like I come away with a higher opinion of the ACP pump. So I think it is incredibly good. I enjoy it a lot. The BARM STT-12, I believe is the name of the shotgun. This is going to be the auto shotgun. For me, it's somewhat hard to rank. It's going to be between B and C tier. At the start of the season, I thought they were quite close, as I said, but as time has gone on and I've played more, I feel like I enjoy the ACP pump better. So I would maybe put the C tier, but if you have this higher, I don't really disagree with you too much. This is a weapon that's pretty hard for me to rank because I haven't really used it outside of like the second or third day. Because as I said, they felt close to me early on, and then I started to enjoy the pump a lot more. Next is going to be the A280 blaster rifle. This is going to be between A and S tier. I think if I was to rank all the ARs ever in Fortnite, it would probably be B tier. But for this season, I think it's S. I think it is very good. It is a very basic red dot AR. The damage is nothing too incredible. The fire rate isn't anything too incredible. The sight is clean. And it has basically no recoil from my experience. It is one of the most accurate weapons we've ever had, in my opinion. So we're going to put this S tier. As I said, though, if you compare it to recent rifles, like I think the Striker Burst is better. I think the Hollow Twister is better. But for this season, it's one of the better weapons, and depending on how you want to play, I think most people are going to prefer this. Let's go to, I guess, this SMG. This is an interesting weapon because I think it's B tier. It's very good, but there's things that do what it does, I feel like, better while being more versatile. Or maybe not better, but the amount of more versatility you get with them is definitely worthwhile. This thing shreds up close, but it doesn't have as much range as some of the other weapons you could use in that slot. It is really lacking on range. And so I feel like for the most part, people are going to want to use like these three weapons together, like shotgun, AR, and SMG, or you're going to be using shotgun, SMG, and DMR. And if that's going to be my setup, I would rather be using something like the F11, the DLT-19, or the DC-15, or even this pistol. So I feel like this weapon is... its effectiveness is good, but with how it fits into like setups this season, my likelihood of using it is quite low, so I'm going to put it C tier. The F11, I feel like slots into that loadout a lot better. So if I was going to use like shotgun, F11, and DMR, I feel like the F11 shreds up close. It makes like a very good AR SMG hybrid while having more range than this SMG and having less recoil, and so it's just like much easier to use. And that's why the SMG is ranked lower, because if I was going to opt into that playstyle, I would just much rather have an F11. But I feel like as far as, you know, an AR SMG hybrid goes, if you want something to follow up with your pump that also has like a bit of range behind it, I think the F11 is incredibly good. The fire rate is solid, the damage is solid, it has like no recoil. It does have bloom, but like the bloom is not horrible for the ranges it should be being used at. If you're trying to use just shotgun and F11 and fight somebody like 70 meters away with the F11, that is not going to go well. If you're using a weapon like this, you're going to want to pair it with the DMR, which is also going to be S tier. The IQ A11 marksman rifle, or just as I call it, the DMR, is a problem this season. And what I mean by that is like if you're dealing with somebody using it well, like they're a problem. Like it is incredibly effective. The amount of chip damage you can get with this is incredible. I think pretty much regardless of rarity, the body damage is around like 60 to 70. And so just a single shot can create a situation that you can like maybe push off if you're confident fighting close range. And a single headshot is definitely something that's like viable to push off. Obviously, it's not the greatest at close. It's filling the marksman, you know, DMR sniper role. And that's why I was saying like the ideal setup for it is something like this. What the heck? I can't put it where I want. Like shotgun for, you know, shotgun, F11 for close range and to complement the shotgun, and then DMR for extreme long range. If inventory slots weren't a concern, I would be running this every game. But wanting to, you know, carry extra mobility or utility, I end up using shotgun and A280 a lot. But the DMR is incredible. I don't think really anybody needs to be told that. I think blue rarity and higher will kill in 2 headshots, regardless of the opponent's HP. One thing that a lot of people could kind of struggle with this is maybe like leading, because it is, to my knowledge, the only weapon in the current loot pool that isn't hit scan is this IQ A11. And what hit scan means is that you don't have to worry about bullet travel time or drop. This thing does have bullet travel time, but it is so fast that you can just play as if it's hit scan and you're going to do better. Like I felt like I got more consistent using this DMR once I just played as if it was hit scan. I don't worry about leading shots. I don't worry about any of that. I just put the shot where I want it to go, and the results are crazy. And that makes it incredibly easy to use as well and consistent. So I think this weapon is S tier. The rest of the weapons are not my preferred weapons, but I think most of them are solid. The E11, I don't know where to rank. I think this is the most mid weapon of all time in Fortnite. It has okay damage, okay fire rate, enough bloom to where I don't really want to use it. Like I feel like it has more bloom than the F11 and is less accurate while just being a worse weapon. I don't really know what the point of the E11 is. I think the F11 is just a far superior weapon at filling that role. So we're going to put this D tier, even though, like I said, I think it's like the most mid weapon of all time. It's just probably the worst weapon in the current loot pool. This is a DLT-19. A lot of people like this weapon, and it can melt. Like, as I said at the start of the video, almost everything is good. Same problem as the SMG for me, though. If I was going to use this, it would be shotgun, DLT-19, and DMR. And if I'm going to be opting into that, would I prefer this over the F11? Like, if I wanted that setup? And the answer is no. It does have a higher fire rate than the F11, but it has a lower damage. DPS-wise, the DT-19 is better, but it has more recoil, and it has like a weird recoil pattern. And DPS, a lot of people make out to be like just like a definitive, if this gun has better DPS, therefore it's better. But when you have a weapon that has like weirder recoil, that's going to make it more inconvenient to hip fire with and use at longer ranges. So you're probably going to be missing shots, and in the long run actually do less damage over time. Like every Fortnite fight is not just you and an opponent barrel stuffing each other, not missing shots, you know? DPS takes out a lot of the context of how a weapon plays and how it feels. And to me, it just feels worse than the F11. So if I was going to go shotgun, spray weapon, DMR, the F11 would be my choice. But this gun is fine. Like, it's not a terrible gun by any means. And even the SMG, when I used it in that same playstyle, I would have preferred to have something else. But the SMG wasn't terrible either. It could maybe be in B tier. This pistol, I think, is A tier. I think this is incredibly underrated. It just suffers from the fact that, like, there's a lot of good items in the loot pool. I think if you wanted to just do 2 guns, you could get by with shotgun in this. If you don't mind using the third-person weapons at range, this pistol is very good. It has a 2 times headshot multiplier, so I think you're going to be hitting for, like, 80 plus headshot damage regardless of rarity. I don't know the stats for it off the top of my head. But I used this weapon when I was making a video on the Mythics, and I didn't really advise going to Island to get it. Like, that just felt like too inconvenient for what it was. But I really enjoyed my time using this weapon. If you enjoy using pistols, you're going to have a lot of fun using this. And I definitely think it can slot into a 2-gun setup with the pump. The DC-15 is going to be another one of those weapons. I think it is very good. I just don't prefer to use it because it is a third-person weapon, and I like having the red dot for longer range fights. But you can definitely get by with just pumping DC-15. If you feel comfortable aiming the third-person weapons at range, this thing has a lot of damage, not the slowest fire rate, but it has like no recoil and no bloom as well. So it is incredibly accurate while hitting very hard. The problem with using it as like a 2-gun setup is going to be like its slower fire rate can maybe grief you in those close range situations. And then also in very long range fights or just like fights where you're playing around cover, I feel better at peeking with like a red dot gun than I do a third person gun. And that's kind of my main reasoning for preferring, you know, the DMR or the A280 for those fights. But this thing is incredible. And if anyone tells me that they like use pump in either of these two guns, it's like a 2-gun setup, I don't think that is like bad by any means. I just don't like, I don't feel comfortable using the third person weapons at really long range, and I don't feel the greatest at playing off cover with them. Bunkers and bubbles are both going to be like A or B tier, I think. This season has a lot of weapons that can just deal damage and like pick you off easily, like the DMR and the A280 or even the DC-15. So having some sort of cover item is good. And the lack of mobility this season, I feel like also makes these cover items a bit better. I find myself using them more this season than I did in the past, just out of like, there's nothing else I want to use in this slot, so I guess I'll take that, you know? Until I find more shockwaves or until I get a lightsaber. I like running double mobility with the lightsaber, which we'll get to in a moment. But I think both of these cover items are good. And in squads, having somebody carry these is probably essential because this season does play out a lot slower than a lot of the recent seasons. This thermal imploder is hard for me to rank. I'm going to put it at C tier, I guess. I've seen a lot of people gas this, but how long it takes to blow up just makes it something I don't want to use at all. Anytime someone has used this on me, they have died before it blew up. And so I don't really know how good it is because I haven't used it and I haven't really had to play against it. But it's there, I guess. Shockwaves, we're going to have it S tier. It's pretty much the only main mobility item in the game. Lightsabers, you know, are a thing we'll get to in a moment. I really like having shockwaves. If shockwaves were more plentiful this season, like if you could get them from turning the sprites into the shrine still, or there was like an NPC that sold them, or just the overall spawn rate of them was higher, this season would be much higher ranked in my opinion. This season is solid, I think, but one of its key problems is lack of mobility. Shockwaves are still going to be S tier though. I like shockwaves a lot. I enjoy using them. I enjoy playing off them. It's just the prevalence of them that kind of is a struggle this season. Both of these medallions I'm going to put at C tier. The Captain Phasma one makes it to where your weapons cool down a bit faster and don't overheat as fast. So you can basically shoot longer without your weapon overheating. This is not an ability that I really want for the most part. Like the only time I really have to shoot my weapons to the point they're overheating is going to be when spraying out cars. And that could be a problem of just the fact that I play solos. But I feel like even in squads, you're not just like standing there shooting for like an eternity. And if you are, you're probably playing against people that aren't very threatening. Like the longer you're peeking, the more likely it is that you take damage. And when we have weapons as lethal as like the A280, like it's very accurate. And then this DMR is very accurate. I don't want to be peeking and shooting for a long time. So I don't really care for this medallion. Combined with the fact that it like broadcasting your location is typically something I don't care very much about or don't mind as much. But with this season having less mobility and having these guns that can punish any timing very easily, I don't want to give my location away as much. So I just don't use the medallions this season. The spaceships also contribute to that. I'm not sure if I just said that, but just like every time I've had the medallion, I just get like attacked by spaceships out of nowhere. And while you can outplay them and beat them, I would rather that not happen, you know? And then the shield bubble medallion is the same thing. We had this last season. I didn't think it was very good. Probably a little bit better this season because there's less mobility, so it's a bit harder for people to push you, so you can maybe get more value out of the shield bubble. But I just don't want to go for island. I don't like dealing with it. I don't like dealing with Shogun X. In season 1, it was worth it too because that invisibility medallion was incredibly good. But if the medallion is going to be mid, I would rather just not deal with it. And so that's where I rank this. Now we're going to get into the force abilities. I should have put a lightsaber on here as well. The lightsaber is interesting to rank. For a melee weapon, I would put the lightsaber at like C or D tier. I think it's quite bad as a melee weapon. For mobility, I would put it at like B or A tier. I don't think the lightsaber mobility is the greatest, especially on its own. But since there is such little mobility this season, I end up using it a lot. And there's certain situations where like the lightsaber Jedi jump isn't the most, like you don't get the most distance out of it, but sometimes it's enough. And that's a situation where I could like save a shockwave, you know, and I really value that because of how difficult it is to get shockwaves this season. And then also being able to shockwave into a Jedi flip could create situations where maybe you conserve some shockwaves, especially if you're losing a fight or, you know, timing didn't go well for you. and you need to reset. Like, rather than using 2 or 3 shockwaves to run away, you can do like 1 shockwave and a Jedi flip, and then maybe you're far enough away. So the lightsaber mobility, I have a much higher opinion on this season than I ever have, and that's mainly just because of we're more limited as far as mobility items go. In Chapter 4 Season 2, when we had it as well, we had like the Attack on Titan thing in the game. We had the Spider-Man web shooters. We had kinetic blades until they were taken out for like the last week. So the lack of mobility makes me value the lightsabers more. As far as the Jedi abilities go, I like the push the most, I think. The force push allows you to kind of get people away from you in any time where it's like, if there's like weird, awkward timing, you could just force push them away and kind of reset that fight. And that's a lot of how I would use the Fletcher Kane medallion last season, was like, oh, this timing is just crap. Let me just sprint bash him away from me. And then that kind of resets the fight. And I feel like you can use force push in a similar way. You can also use it to get people out of bushes, but all of these abilities do that. Emperor Palpatine's electricity, I want to put this at like S or A tier. So I typically am going to be carrying a lightsaber anyways at this point. I'm not really that concerned about the abilities, but being able to electrocute a car or a spaceship to disable it can definitely be helpful in some situations. I know some people like to just go for the shock to get eliminations. That's not really something that I would want to do. Like, that feels very random to me, and I would rather just kind of play off cover well with like my shotgun and AR. So I don't want to do that as much. If you just like straight use it for kills and it works out for you, you'd maybe have it S tier, but I'll have it A. And then the rocks, same thing. Like, you can get kills with them. This is going to be the force throw, where you throw a bunch of rocks and whatever is nearby at people. You can definitely get eliminations that way. But to me, I feel like if I just play normally, I have more control over the outcome of a fight, rather than going into this animation and then maybe getting the elimination before they eliminate me. I feel like you just kind of like coin flip the fight. If you get it off, then you get the kill. If you don't get it off, then you probably die. And so I don't care for it too much. Can be used on people camping in buildings to expose them, but so can the push and so can the pull. The pull is probably my least favorite. There's very few times where I would want to use this. Like, maybe if somebody's shockwaving away from you, you could pull them to you. But you would have to be like at a perfect distance to make that work and get the timing really well, to the point where I don't think it's going to work out too much. If somebody's like sitting behind cover in a bush in a building and you pull them to you, it can work, but you're also just like making a pretty 50-50 fight. And most of the time I would rather not do that. So the pull is probably my least favorite one, but I don't care too much about the ability. Like, if all of them were right next to each other, I would probably pick Rey or Palpatine. But for the most part, I just go for whichever one is closest to me, and that's what I have for the game, because the thing I care most about with the lightsaber is going to be the mobility aspect of it. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, comment down below, you know, which item you think is the best or which item you think is the worst, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.